With just hours to go until the close of the year, a leap year, by the way, we've been looking for a word to encapsulate all 366 days worth of unexpected events and Trump quotes that often stun the world. Between the unpredicted Brexit vote, numerous terrorist attacks across the globe, the entire U.S. election season, and of course, the November election itself, this year has been, what is the word? Should I buy a vowel? Maybe I'll phone a friend. Merriam-Webster? Yes, they say the word of the year is surreal. The dictionary said surreal is looked up spontaneously in moments of both tragedy and surprise. Now, we'll leave it to you to decide which feeling was the common denominator behind the popular word search, but regardless of the motivation, it seems many people have literally searched for some way to define the often unbelievable, shocking, and even nonsensically dreamlike events of 2016, which continued even on this last day of this year with this tweet from Donald Trump. Happy New Year to all, including my many enemies and those who have fought me and lost so badly they just don't know what to do. Love! Exclamation point. So, as we near the end of this trippy 2016 dream, when it comes to U.S. politics, we've got to ask, how did we get here? Here with me now are MTV News senior national correspondent Jamil Smith, New York One Noticias political reporter Juan Manuel Benitez, Democratic strategist Karine Jean-Pierre, and my colleague, Washington Post opinion writer Jennifer Rubin. Jennifer, I've got to start with you. One of the biggest moments of the campaign was the infamous Access Hollywood tape. We don't have to play it because we sort of bleeped it out in the opening montage, but let's just say he bragged about sexual assault. But here's what happened in the vote. In the 2016 election, white women voters went for Donald Trump, 52% to 43% for Hillary Clinton. After all the things that we saw happen with Donald Trump, including that Access Hollywood tape, why do you think, how did we get to the point where white women, a majority of white women, went for Donald Trump?
Well, as a white woman, I'm puzzled, too. Now, there was a difference based on education that cut across gender, college-educated versus non-college educated. So Hillary Clinton did much better, obviously, with the college-educated. I think that we in the elite media, and I do include myself, tended to overlook this overriding sense of identity that overrode gender, that overrode race to a certain extent. Remember, Donald Trump did better with Hispanics than Mitt Romney did. And this was this sort of populist anger, some of it race-based, I do agree, some of it purely economic, but the sense of lost identity, and Trump knew how to tap into that. And I think that's what overrode a lot of these things that you and I thought were going to be the end of Trump, whether it was Access Hollywood, whether it was Judge Curiel, that we thought that people would respond to it, particularly people of those groups that were attacked and demonized, but it didn't. And I think what happened was we had this burgeoning white working class, based in the Rust Belt, kind of revolt. And we didn't see it coming, or didn't see it coming sharply enough. And that overrode a lot of things that in normal elections really kind of determine the outcome.
Yeah, you know, Jamil, one of the things that Trump said that I thought was going to be the death knell of his campaign, because in normal times it would have been the death knell of any campaign, was when he disparaged the service of Senator John McCain, the 2008 Republican presidential nominee. And let's just play that sound of what Donald Trump said.
I don't like losers. But Frank, let me get to it. He hit me. He's not a war hero. He's a war hero. He's a war hero.
5.5 years.
He's a war hero because he was captured. I like people that weren't captured, okay? I hate to tell you.
I mean, Jamil, that is horrendous. There was anger over it, and yet the thing that got me to stop saying that this is the end of Donald Trump, his poll numbers went up. Why didn't the anger over that horrendous thing not knock him out?
I mean, let me just say, as a son of a Vietnam veteran, that absolutely infuriated me. But they went up because he managed to tap into a greater trend, I think, that's happening throughout our culture, which is the erosion of public trust in trusted institutions, such as the press, such as, and really anything, government, all these different things that we've been taught to trust, he managed to find a way to erode that trust, and he used his celebrity status as a gateway to doing that.
Juan Manuel, another instance that came up that was shocking to a lot of people. By the time it happened, I was already like, nothing's going to happen to this. And that was when Donald Trump made fun of a reporter at the New York Times with a physical disability. Let's see that.
Written by a nice reporter. Now the poor guy, you got to see this guy. Oh, I don't know what I said. I don't remember. He's going like, I don't remember. Maybe that's what I said.
And like I said, by the time this happened, we had seen and heard so much from him. Why do you think that even that wasn't enough to knock him out?
Well, I think the clue was on his very first day as a presidential candidate, when he said that thing of, when Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best, right? And after that, there was some sort of outrage, there was some boycotts, but really quickly, everybody backtracked and they said, like, you know what, he's not a conventional candidate, he's good for the ratings, he's giving us copy every day here in the media so we can talk about it. So once we started normalizing that kind of behavior and that kind of message, xenophobic message, anything that came after that was fair game. And people, we forget that this was a change election. People wanted drastic change, and that means that many white women might have said, you know what, in a regular election, I'm supposed to vote for the female candidate. Like a black voter can say, I should vote for the black candidate. In this case, all these people say, you know what, I want to break all conventions. I want to vote for this guy because he's going to bring something new, something fresh, because we're tired of the paralysis in Washington and of business as usual.
I know people want a drastic change, but Corinne, did they want such drastic change that they were willing to overlook a presidential candidate who couldn't find it within himself to disavow support from David Duke?
Right.
I mean, let's before you answer, let's play this astounding tape.
You wouldn't want me to condemn a group that I know nothing about. I'd have to look. If you would send me a list of the groups, I will do research on them, and certainly I would disavow if I thought there was something wrong. But you may have groups in there that are totally fine, and it would be very unfair. So give me a list of the groups, and I'll let you know.
Okay. I mean, I'm just talking about David Duke and the Ku Klux Klan here, but...
I don't know. Honestly, I don't know David Duke. I don't believe I've ever met him.
I don't know David Duke. I don't believe I ever. Corinne, come on.
Yeah, no, I agree. When that happened, it was quite shocking and really disappointing that he didn't disavow and went back and forth with it, and it was quite confusing. But I think just to go back to what you said about, we didn't take him seriously, and because we didn't take him seriously, we normalized him at the same time. And all of these things, I think, should have disqualified him, and it didn't. But there were a series of things that led to Donald Trump being elected. It was the fake news. It was the Kremlin super PAC that was behind him, right? It was voter suppression. Let's not forget that. So there were a series of things. It was a toxic brew, if you will, that really led us to a Donald Trump being our president very, very soon.
Jennifer, we just have a minute left, but I've got to bring you in here. And, Corinne mentioned, the normalizing of Donald Trump. And by the time this particular thing happened, I don't know if we have enough time to play the tape, but once I mentioned the name of the Gold Star family, it was incredible to have a presidential nominee attack a Gold Star family, families that have given the ultimate sacrifice to this country, and yet nothing happened to him. Let's play that quick soundbite.
His wife, if you look at his wife, she was standing there. She had nothing to say. Maybe she wasn't allowed to have anything to say. You tell me.
What sacrifice have you made for your country?
I think I made a lot of sacrifices. I worked very, very hard. I've created thousands and thousands of jobs, tens of thousands of jobs. I think
those are sacrifices?
I have to agree, Jennifer. Those are sacrifices?
Gosh. I think part of the problem has been really the intellectual and ethical, moral collapse of what used to be a Republican Party, and now has become some weird populist nativist party. And this is, I think, part of what we've been talking about, the collapse of values, the collapse of institutions. Someone like this got traction because his party let him get traction. And that's why so many of us have, frankly, thrown in the towel on the Republican Party and hold them responsible for this. We haven't talked about, but we should also be honest, that Hillary Clinton was not the best candidate, and many people who would otherwise have voted Democratic either stayed home or maybe even voted for Donald Trump. And some of those were of her own making, and some of them were not.
Jennifer, we're going to have to leave it there. It's amazing how 11 minutes can go by like that. My guests will all be back.